A woman alone at an ATM, a shadow lurking. In the night, and a deadly mistake about to be made. Mia Turner pulled her coat tighter as the cold wind swept through. The empty streets, the city, felt quieter than usual, the dim glow of flickering streetlights casting long, eerie shadows. Beside her shadow, her German shepherd sat alert, his ears were pricked forward, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. Though retired from the K-9 unit, his protective instincts had never faded. Mia punched in her pin, trying to shake the uneasy feeling creeping up her spine. Maybe it was just paranoia, but then the sound of footsteps behind her before she could turn, a cold voice sliced through the silence. "Don't move, hand over to cash." A chill ran down Mia's spine. This wasn't just a random mugging, she could feel it. But what the thief didn't know, she wasn't alone. Mia felt the tension in the air instantly. That voice, it wasn't shaky like some desperate amateur, it was cold, steady, the voice of someone who had done this before. She turned slowly. A man in a dark hoodie stood just beyond the glow of the street lamp. In his right hand, a small knife gleamed under the dim light. "Hurry up," his voice was harsher. "Now hand it over, and no one gets hurt." Mia's grip on the cash tightened. Running wasn't an option, and if she gave him the money, would he really let her go? Kadow growled, a deep, menacing sound that shifted the energy in the air. Instantly, the thief hesitated, his gaze flicking to shadow. He had made a fatal mistake. He had ignored the dog jet. He muttered, stepping back slightly. Mia kept her voice firm. "Walk away." He hesitated, then he lunged. It happened in an instant. A sharp bark pierced the night, a final warning before shadow exploded forward. The thief barely had time to react before powerful jaws clamped around his wrist. The knife clattered to the pavement. He screamed, thrashing as he tried to break free, but shadow held firm, his weight pressing the man down, his amber eyes burning with focus. Mia's breath came fast. She had never seen shadow move like that before. Then, before she could process it, another voice rang out from the darkness, "Let him go, or you're going to regret it." A second man stepped out of the shadows, bigger, meaner, in his hands a steel pipe. Mia's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a mugging. Mia's heart pounded. She had dealt with one attacker, but now there was another, and he was worse. The new man stepped forward, his grip tightening around the steel pipe. Under the flickering street light, Mia could see his knuckles turning white from the force of his grip. "Let him go," he growled, "or I'll crush your dog's skull." Shadow didn't flinch, his deep rumbling growl cut through the cold night air, fearless, unwavering. As mind raced, if she ran, they would chase her. If she handed over the money, they might take it. And still heard her. No, she wasn't letting fear make the decisions tonight. The man with the pipe took another step forward, then swung a powerful strike, aimed straight at Shadow's head, but the dog was ready. The second the pipe came down, Shadow released. The first man spun and leapt. The impact was brutal. The thug was slammed backward, the sheer force knocking him off his feet. The pipe clattered to the pavement, rolling into the gutter. Mia didn't waste a second. She lunged forward and kicked the pipe further away. The first thief, still clutching his wounded wrist, stared at the scene in shock. "Screw this man, that dog's a damn monster," he yelled. The second man wed beneath Shadow's weight, his face twisted in pure terror. Shadow didn't loosen his hold, his massive paws pinned the man down, his fangs hovering just an inch from his throat. Mia exhaled, looking down at the man trapped beneath her dog. "If I let you go, you're gone, understand?" Her voice was ice. The man nodded frantically. Mia gave a single sharp whistle. Immediately, Shadow stepped back, but his stance remained rigid, muscles coiled, ready. The two attackers didn't need to be told twice. They scrambled to their feet and bolted, disappearing into the night. Mia placed a hand on Shadow's head, feeling the steady, powerful rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her palm. Her breath came out unsteady, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline. The street was silent again. The attackers were gone. It was over, or so she thought then. Headlights flickered in the distance. Mia stood frozen, her breath still uneven, her pulse hammering in her ears. Shadow stayed close, his sharp gaze locked onto the darkened street ahead. She thought it was over, but then headlights flickered. In the distance, a sleek black SUV rolled slowly down the empty road, moving with an eerie, deliberate pace, like a predator circling its prey. Mia swallowed hard, her grip tightening on Shadow's leash. The SUV came to a stop just a few meters away. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the window lowered. A man sat in the driver's seat. He wasn't like the two thugs she had just fought off. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't afraid. It was calm, controlled, dangerous. You made quite an impression. His voice was smooth yet ice cold. Shadow let out a deep rumbling growl. The man glanced at him, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Smart dog. Let's hope you know how to keep him on a leash. Mia said nothing. Every instinct told her this man was far more dangerous than the ones before him. The man raised an eyebrow. My guys came running back to me, ranting about some four-legged monster. He chuckled softly, but his eyes were razor sharp. You just made yourself some enemies. Mia Turner, her stomach clenched. He knew her name. The SUV began to roll forward, but just before disappearing into the darkness, the man left her with one final warning. Hope you're not the type to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Mia felt her blood run cold. This wasn't just a failed mugging. She had just stepped into a war she didn't even know existed. Mia stood frozen, eyes still fixed on the road where the SUV had disappeared. The night air was cold, but the chill settling inside her was far worse. He knew her name. He wasn't bluffing. Shadow pressed against her leg, his amber eyes scanning her face, sensing her unease. Mia took a slow, deep breath, then reached into her pocket, pulling out her phone. There was only one person she could call. The line barely rang twice before a familiar, rough voice answered. Mia, it's almost midnight. What's going on? Ryan Carter, ex-cop, her closest friend, and the only person she trusted. Mia's grip tightened on the phone. I was attacked on the other end. Ryan immediately snapped to attention. Where are you? Mia inhaled, steadying her voice. It was supposed to be a mugging, but it wasn't. The guy in charge found me. A heavy silence, then Ryan's voice turned cold. Send me your location. I'm on my way. Mia hung up and turned to Shadow. She ran a hand through his thick fur, grounding herself in his warmth. She had no idea what was coming next, but she wasn't facing it alone. Mia put her phone away, trying to control her breathing. Ryan was on his way, but something in her gut told her it wasn't enough. Shadow tensed, ears rigid, eyes locked on something in the distance. A cold dread crept up Mia's spine. Then she saw it. The black SUV was coming back. This time, it wasn't just watching, it was coming straight for her. Chit. Mia tightened her grip on Shadow's leash, stepping back. The doors swung open. Two men stepped out. She recognized one of them, the thug with the pipe from earlier, but this time he wasn't holding a pipe. He had a gun. Don't run, Mia. His voice was mocking. We just want to talk. Shadow growled low, stepping in front of her. The thug's hand drifted toward his waistband, but before he could reach his weapon, headlights cut through the darkness. Tires screeched against the pavement. A truck roared toward them, slamming to a stop right in front of Mia. Ryan, get in now. His voice was razor sharp. Mia didn't hesitate. She yanked the door open. Shadow leapt in first, and she followed. The moment the door slammed shut, Ryan hit the gas. The SUV gave chase. Mia glanced back. They weren't giving up. They're following us, she said, her voice tight. Ryan's grip on the wheel tightened. His eyes locked forward. They don't know who I am, he muttered, but they're about to find out. With a sudden turn, he veered onto a desolate road, the truck's engine roaring as they sped toward the outskirts of the city. Mia clutched Shadow, her heart hammering. This wasn't over, had just begun. Ryan kept a tight grip on the wheel, his jaw clenched. Neither of them spoke as the truck rumbled down the forest road. The city lights had disappeared behind them, swallowed by the darkness of the woods. 15 minutes later, Ryan pulled up to a secluded cabin, silent, hidden a place where no one would find them. Mia opened the door, but Shadow didn't jump out immediately. Instead, he sniffed the air. Ears pricked forward, body tense. He still sensed danger inside. Ryan said, his voice low. The cabin was small but heavily secured. Surveillance cameras, reinforced doors, a locked weapons cabinet. Ryan poured 2 cups of coffee, setting one in front of Mia. Tell me everything. Mia took a slow breath and told him, from the mugging to the man in the SUV to his cryptic warning. Ryan listened in silence, but when she described the man's demeanor, his face darkened. He knew without a word. Ryan opened his laptop, typed quickly, then turned the screen toward her. A file appeared. Victor Calloway, ex-military, dishonorably discharged for extreme violence, leader of a criminal syndicate specializing in robbery and abduction. Mia felt her blood run cold. Ryan's voice was grim. He's not just some street thug. He runs an empire. Then she saw something that made her stomach clench. I threat level toward K9 units. Ryan gestured toward Shadow. Don't you get it? Mia held her breath. Calloway wasn't just coming after her. He wanted Shadow dead. Why? Ryan leaned forward. Years ago, Calloway was set to pull off a major heist, stealing military weapons, but his plan fell apart because of a kind. Mia stiffened. Ryan nodded. A dog named Titan tracked him down, bit into his arm as he tried to escape, held him long enough for law enforcement to take him down. That one dog ruined everything. Calloway lost his career, his power, his freedom, and he never forgot. Mia turned to Shadow. Shadow knew nothing of that past, but somehow he had sensed the danger all along. Long his body remained rigid, his amber eyes sweeping the room, waiting. Ryan set his cup down, locking eyes with Mia. You humiliated him. He won't stop. Mia pressed a hand against Shadow's for steadying herself. She couldn't run, she couldn't hide. So what do we do? Ryan's gaze hardened. We get ready. The room fell into a heavy silence. Outside, the forest was still, but Mia knew the real storm was coming. The air in the cabin felt heavier. Mia sat still, feeling Shadow's steady breaths beside her. Ryan stood, walking over to the gun safe. He unlocked it, pulled out a Glock, loaded a magazine, and slid it toward Mia. Take it. Mia stared at the weapon, her palms suddenly slick with sweat. I don't think they'll come this soon, she muttered. Ryan scoffed. Mia, what kind of man is Calloway? She swallowed. He doesn't let things go. Ryan nodded. Exactly. And if he set his sights on you, he won't wait long. Then Shadow shot up, growling. Mia froze. Ryan grabbed his gun, moved swiftly to the window, and peeked through the curtain. He cursed under his breath. Headlights pierced through the trees. Multiple headlights, tires, punched against the gravel. They had arrived. Ryan turned sharply. Kill the lights now. Mia rushed to the switch, plunging the cabin into darkness. Outside, car doors slammed shut. A voice called out, deep and familiar. Mia Turner, done playing hide and seek. Shadow let out a vicious growl, muscles coiling like a spring. A shiver ran down Mia's spine. Calloway was here, and he wasn't alone. Bam! The first gunshot shattered the night glass, exploded, raining down in jagged shards. Shadow launched like a bullet. Outside, one of the attackers screamed as the massive German shepherd slammed into him, knocking him flat against the dirt. Gunfire. Reed. Ryan raised his AR-15 and pulled the trigger. Bang! One thug collapsed, his gun clattering to the ground. Mia spotted another in his weapon, aimed straight at Shadow. She didn't think. Bang! Her bullet slammed into his shoulder. He cried out, stumbling back, but Calloway didn't move. He stood still, watching the chaos unfold, his face unreadable as his men were taken down one by one. It was losing. Shadow kept his grip on the man he'd taken down, fangs fury deep in his arm. The thug thrashed, "Get him off me, please," but none of them dared step forward. Calloway looked around, realization sinking in. He wasn't winning this fight. He clenched his jaw, taking a step back, fury flashing in his eyes. "Fall back," he snarled. His men scrambled toward the SUV, dragging them. Wounded with them, Mia stood still, breath. Ragged eyes locked on Calloway. He stared back at her, his expression like ice. Then, just before turning to leave, he smirked. Cold. You think this is over? His voice was low, but thick with promise. This is just the beginning. The SUV's engine roared too. Life tires screeching as it tore away. Into the darkness, Mia tightened her grip on the Glock. She knew he wasn't bluffing. This nightmare was far from over. It had only just begun. Mia stood still, her eyes fixed on the darkness where Calloway's SUV had vanished. The engine noise was gone, but the silence left behind was heavier than the gunfire beside her. Shadow let out a low growl, his amber eyes sweeping the area. Still alert, Ryan lowered his rifle, exhaling, his gaze drifting over the shattered glass. The bullet casing scattered across the floor. The house was a battlefield. It's over. His voice was calm, but certain. Mia let out a slow, shaky breath. Was it really over? She looked down at Shadow, his ears twitching slightly, his gaze finally softening. There were no more threats. Shadow turned his head toward Mia, then quietly stepped closer, pressing against her leg. Mia sank to her knees, wrapping her arms around him. She felt his warmth, his steady heartbeat, his unwavering strength. He had protected her, and because of that, she was still here. Ryan stood nearby, arms crossed, lost, a small smirk breaking through the dust, and gunpowder on his face. You've got one hell of a dog, Turner. Mia let out a soft laugh, still burying her face in shadows. Thick for not just a dog, she whispered. Family. The night settled into silence, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Mia felt safe, truly safe.